Welcome back to another episode of the Basalong Cycling Show. I'm your host Sherry. This month, 5 things I wish I knew as a beginner in ultracycling and bikepacking. Before we jump into the episode, if you enjoy it, make sure to rate the show on Spotify and Apple Podcasts and to like and subscribe on YouTube. It really helps to support the channel. But before buzzing news, this month we have Lachlan Morton still in his attempt around Australia to beat the fastest known time. But what is this? FKTs. Definitely something to consider because you can do the route on your own time and take on this challenge by yourself. Definitely gives you more flexibility and is quite affordable because you don't need to pay entry fees or anything like that. Let me know. Is something you consider doing? Also, one of my favorite ways to get into long distance cycling is brevets because it's a time event and you have checkpoints along the way, so it gives you a really nice challenge. Is there any brevets or randonneuring in your area or some that you would recommend? Leave a comment below. Joining me today is Quinda Verheul. She is an ultra cyclist and an artist from the Netherlands. She has done some of the toughest ultra races like Silk Road Mountain Race, Atlas Mountain Race, and won the Hellenic Mountain Race. And is hopefully gonna share some tips about how to tackle these kind of events and her experience bikepacking in Morocco. Welcome to the show, Quinda. I hope. Sorry for the pronunciation of your
I
surname.
love
hope
it.
it's okay.
So good. Hi, Sherry. It's amazing to be here. Thanks for having me. It's great.
Thank you so much. I mean, we met in Amsterdam when I just started doing ultra cycling, and it was really cool because you were giving some words of inspiration here in one of the events, and actually, you gave some quite helpful tips. So, you went to do some of the toughest races right away off road, like Atlas Mountain Race, Silk Road, Hellenic. Why did you decide to go into ultra cycling and especially straight into these kind of tough events?
Straight into it, huh? Yeah, I have like fun memories as well of the first encounter. That was great. I'm also happy to hear that the tips were helpful. That's awesome. I don't know what I don't know. There's something about being in the landscape, I guess, that was like very attractive.
Mm-hmm.
But it must be the film that was made of Silk Road Mountain Race
Yeah.
in Kyrgyzstan that I was like, oh, wow, like the whole experience of how the writers were talking about it, that
Yeah.
seemed something that I wanted as well. It's like something like, I want to try that. That should be possible. And
Yeah.
not much longer after, there was a teaser of the first Atlas Mountain Race. And I
Mm-hmm.
was like, oh, that is something I traveled to Morocco before. And I was like, I think this should be possible. Like I think I can handle Morocco as a
Yeah.
first. And I did get some comments of like, this is not like an entry race and this is hardcore. And looking back, like with the experience I have now, I would
Yeah.
definitely say that that was the hardest race I've ever done. Just because I know, as well, like as an ultra race, you get like a lot of body sensations and you have no idea
Yeah.
yeah what it is going to or what it means. Like if you have like a stomach ache today, you're like, oh, that's annoying. But when you have it in a race, it's like, what did I eat, especially in Morocco? Like, did I get
Yeah.
sick or not, or is it something else? So yeah, that's very interesting. And I guess because I did that first race, although it was one of the hardest ones, I think the experience in itself was so addictive, I guess, that I just wanted
Yeah.
to do more of them and just like kept going.
And reflecting on that experience, is there a piece of advice you wish you had before starting? For example, someone that is just beginning into ultra cycling or bikepacking, what would you say is something like, oh, I wish I knew that?
Go for it. Because I think even if you would do it, and I mean, it's better to do it and fail than like always regret that you didn't do it. So if you get what I mean. It's like, go
Yeah.
for it, but that means you also should be aware that you have to prepare.
Yeah.
So by talking to someone like you or to other people that have experience with these races, and there's so much information out there on like how to pack your bike and
Yeah.
how to prepare. I think it is easier to like kind of navigate this whole world of bikepacking, and then you have to think logic what the things are that work for you. And it's easy to overpack, I'd say, like to
Yeah.
be luxurious and like to just
Yeah.
bring everything that brings you comfort. But there's some, especially for a first race, I think it's totally okay to bring some comfortable things.
Mm-hmm.
Be prepared to invest because it is not cheap. Yeah, and then having like the whole setup and bags and wheels and all the things that need replacement after you're done with the race.
Yeah.
That's a lot. Yeah, definitely preparation is key, and it would be ideal if you could do some bike packing on your own, like
Mm-hmm.
just go out on a solo ride and go out on like solo trips where you sleep outside and you test your kit. And it's hard, like if you live in the Netherlands, and like testing your kit for something like Morocco is a bit different because Morocco is way drier than the Netherlands. But it's
Yeah.
good to like feel how it feels for you to camp after a long day in the saddle, stuff like that.
Yeah, exactly. And for example, I just signed up for the Atlas Mountain Race and I reached out to you
Congrats.
because I wanted to have some of your top tips for a rookie like me. What would you say are the top tips for this kind of race? You did it twice, once on a gravel bike and on a mountain bike. And I
Yep.
guess experience is all in this kind of races. What are your tips that you say, oh, this made a big change?
That made a big change. I was a little bit more aware of what I could get in terms of fuel, like
Mm-hmm.
nutrition, from the shops. So I made the decision this time for the first time, to bring a stove and make myself like a good loaded full of, yeah, nutritious calories actually in the morning.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I wanted something warm because I knew if I would do a cold soak, I would probably not be able to actually swallow it. So I allowed myself to make a warm breakfast like in the middle of the night, because you're like, I prefer to sleep early and then like wake up at
Yeah.
4 and then get going. So that was my go-to thing. Um, yeah, that was helpful. And as a woman, I would suggest to always bring some tampons and stuff, because my first race I got my period a bit unexpected.
Yeah.
And it's one of the things that your body does, like when it gets into stress or it gets dehydrated or whatever, it just like it will react differently than in your normal cycle, which is
Yeah.
okay. You don't have to be scared or anything, but there's no way that you can get like the products that you might need. So I would just
Yeah.
suggest bring something just in case, and then you're good.
Mm-hmm.
So or maybe bring an extra bib if you were thinking of just riding in one bib, but I
Yeah.
generally like to bring two on longer, longer
Yeah.
races. Um, what else? Yeah, nutritious wise, like there's a few things that are really cool. Like I love the kind of yogurt drinks that they have out there.
Mm.
Sometimes they even have like avocado and almonds in there. I don't even know if
Ah.
that's like if it's just a
Oh.
picture on the package,
Yeah.
but those are really good. And if you're able to eat nuts and stuff like that,
Mm-hmm.
it's totally possible to get it there. And they have amlu, which is like this kind of almond paste with like some syrup or honey in it. And I must
Mm.
say, like, if you can chew that down, I can't, but if you can,
Yeah.
those are like super valuable things. And it would be, yeah. It's because have been there before that I knew what this product was. And
Yeah.
I'd say like that's something good to know. Like it's called amlu, and you can ask for amlu. It's not always like on the shelf recognizable.
Yeah.
It's like if I would be in a shop and I see like a brown paste, I wouldn't buy it. But if you
Uh-huh.
know it is like
Yeah.
valuable, a valuable liquid, then
Yeah.
yeah, go for it. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And for example, what you mentioned in terms of sleeping, how is sleeping there? Do you find many places where you could sleep, or you decided to mostly camp outside? And what would you say is some tips for finding places to sleep in such a remote areas?
Yeah, it's interesting you ask because I'm in general, I don't mind camping. Um, I'm not sure, but you love to sleep in hotels, right? Like I would say like sleeping in a hotel gives you the best
Yeah,
quality of rest, correct?
yeah, yeah.
Um, the funny thing with Morocco, I feel that I'm like being in towns makes me a bit tense because
Mm-hmm.
there's like a lot of noise during the night. And especially in Morocco, I'm more comfortable to just like be away from the towns and kind of sleep in the
Yeah.
desert or like along the road, because it's so quiet, and
Yeah.
it's so like away from dogs, away from humans. Sorry, but I feel more safe, kind of like in a bivvy setup, away from the towns, and that's
Mm-hmm.
really easy. Like in
Yeah.
general, Morocco is very dry, so
Mm.
having a simple bivvy setup, you're good. I mean, there are technically um, spiders and there are scorpions and there might be snakes, but I only saw a spider once, and I think it is it is okay. It's like part of the deal.
Yeah.
Um, but
Big
there
one?
are hotels. It's only the towns shut down like at a quite early
Mm.
time, so that means that I would say you need to have a backup. So if you decide to like, I'm going for a hotel, so, I'm deciding on a hotel, you will sleep around 9, and then so you start sleeping early, and then you wake up early to keep going. And it is the stretches between the towns is pretty long, and sometimes you
Mm-hmm.
can't exactly predict how long the stretch is going to take you. Of
Yeah.
course, you can look at the statistics of last year, and that's great if you, because there have been a few races now, so you can
Mm-hmm.
look at the speed of other riders and what you could expect, which is very valuable information if you dive deep into the planning of your race. But there's always the unexpected things,
Yeah.
and there's been several races. There's been ones with extreme snow. There's been races with flooding. There's been races
Yeah.
with extreme drought and like dehydrated human beings. Don't know how I said that, but
Yeah.
yeah. So there's different conditions that can alter that. So I'd say it's great. Just be aware of never sleeping in a dry riverbed because there
Oh,
might
yeah.
be. Yeah, I mean it's a thing, and
Mm-hmm.
so make sure that you are aware if you're in a dry riverbed. Just don't go there. It is always possible it's raining somewhere else, and that your
Mm-hmm.
whole bivvy setup, including you, will be washed away. And
Yeah.
not everyone is aware of it if
Mm-hmm.
they haven't experienced landscapes like that. So that's good
Yeah.
thing to be aware of.
And what was your sleeping setup? Did you bring a BB bag or a air mattress? Or sometimes I also heard that it's quite difficult to find a place to sleep outside because it's very rocky, so you might not find like a
Mhm.
comfortable surface. Which kind of places did you sleep?
I don't know. I always love to find like a kind of a nook where not everyone that's passing by can see me,
Mm-hmm.
or that you're woken up by the lights of like riders that are riding while you're sleeping. It's something
Yeah.
that, I mean, it's a good thing because you might wake up and you're like, okay, let's get going. But at
Yeah.
the same time, it wakes you up while you still need your valuable sleep. So it's a bit of both. Um, I think so far, I'd say it's really easy. I think it's pretty easy to find a spot. And I just like to bring a bivvy, but like the lightest version that is not used for rain, but just to protect my sleeping
Mm-hmm.
bag and my mat. And I brought the half pad, which basically covers your head until your
Mm-hmm.
I think your knees, like hips. So basically the
Okay.
the the, the points that are like touching the ground the most.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just like it packs smaller. So
Ah.
that's what I did is Thermarest half pad something. And then I also brought a long one this year, but I think the half pad works fine in Morocco, honestly. And it saves some space and some weight. And it can be really cold. Like there's been years it's been the nights in Morocco get pretty cold and the days get pretty warm. So there's like a big shift. So be prepared to be warm at night, because I often, like after a long day, either I just heat up and like my legs just boil, or I just get really cold because I'm tired. So just be prepared so you can like swap the layers and put on another down jacket, or even emergency blanket or something.
Yeah, exactly.
What would you do?
Oh, well, I think I only slept outside in TCR once.
Yeah.
And I was so cold, actually. Like, it was super difficult to get out of the BB because I was like really warm in the BB, in the emergency BB. And then outside it was so cold that it took me like 20 minutes to get out, I think.
Yeah.
And I think maybe I've seen some people with yourself with the down pants that you can kind of start riding in it and then remove them. So I think that was quite a great hack. But as I said, you said I might have to practice sleeping outside, because although I would like to rest in like maybe, I don't know if you can sleep in the checkpoints there.
Some of them, definitely.
Yeah, some of them are hotels, or you can just sleep on the floor, I
Yes,
guess.
like at least you can also, if you're lucky, you can sleep at like cafes or places where you could just sleep outside, if that is like what brings you comfort. And I'd say definitely the checkpoints. It's just like sometimes you might hit the checkpoint in the middle of the day, so you have to be it's all like it's all in the planning, but definitely those are good options.
What are your thoughts about the terrain? I mean, Atlas, you have desert, mountains.
With Atlas, I'd say it is sometimes, it's not like technical, but it's definitely because when I started, I wasn't technical at all. Like I practiced some like in the year leading up to the race, but especially after the race, I really decided that I wanted to get better at off-road riding, because I knew that I really enjoyed this type of racing. So I wanted to invest time to improve my skills, really. So that also means that I decided that next time I would want to ride a mountain bike, because I would be better in control of better in control and faster on descents, especially. And instead of like stepping off the bike to walk certain sections, I would be able to ride it, which is like faster and more comfortable in general, like because sometimes the walking is just more exhausting in general.
That's very interesting. Yeah, for example, you did it on a gravel bike and a mountain bike, so I'm curious to hear like how was the difference? You felt you were faster because I mean, the course doesn't change much, so you could like really compare, oh, last time I couldn't ride this part and now I can. I feel like first edition, a lot of people took a gravel bike and then everybody went on a mountain bike, and I saw you even have a dropper post. So how was your experience comparing both setups? Is it a mountain bike better than a gravel bike?
It's so personal, I'd say. I think for some of the racers, they even have like a mountain bike setup, but still the drop bars because of hand positions and stuff like that, which totally makes sense, because with that you just have the option to move along or move around a bit on the handlebar. I don't think I would ever go for a gravel bike, but that's because the mountain bike is just more comfortable, and I think when you're more comfortable, you have the option to be faster, actually. And I think there's been some studies by other colleagues and other racers that showed that even a full suspension bike on certain terrain versus their gravel bike is not slower, because you could make the argument of like, hey, you have all the suspension, which will slow you down. But it doesn't really so that I think it's interesting. And it mostly it's like, if you don't have the money to spend on a mountain bike, then take the gravel bike. Like that's one thing is like where you would say like just go for it and go do it. But yeah, then one other reason is like, if you have suspension, it's something that could break on your bike. So that's something to keep in mind. And I guess that's the same with how I like to set up my bikes. I said that I don't have the Bluetooth or the electric
wireless.
Yes, thank you. Because it's something like the battery could die, or the batteries could fail, or the whole setup could fail, and then you're stuck in like in a certain mode, and that terrifies me, because that's not something that I could hack while I'm out there. And I think it depends a bit on if you do a road race or not. But yeah, that's something that I would consider as well.
And talking about setup, and how is like the resupplies in such a remote race? Do you find easily like places to get water and food, or is rather difficult?
Depends on, some people are really good at like eating sugary stuff, and I'm not a big fan of that. It's just like my body also like starts to like kind of reject this, just like doesn't want to anymore. And what I love to do is like ordering like 2 or 3 meals and like kind of back those meals up, like omelets, or I don't know, tagine with like potatoes and chicken, which is amazing. Even couscous is really something. If you bring a spoon as well, you could just eat and like have a lunch later or something. That makes me like feel like a human, and I actually have solid food inside me that is full of fats and salt as well. So that's something that's worth a lot.
And talking about the race, what was the most difficult or challenging part, in your opinion, that you say there's always this, or highest point? There's always this high point that you are like, okay, that's what I'm doing it, and there's always this low point that you are like, oh, why am I here?
Yeah, I think I have like low points in every race, where I think there's a low blood sugar and just being tired. Then the tears start running and then they don't stop. You're just like, why am I doing this? But no, it's I think it's often around the second or third day where I have like a mental low. And in general, I'd say I try to be like grateful for the fact that I'm able to do this. You know, we became this strong and we are able to do these things, and it's pretty amazing to be traveling the world and see these amazing places on our own on a bike. That's crazy empowering. And yeah, it's not for everyone, and we made the decision to do this, and so I try to be a little bit because I can be like bit drowning in self-pity. That's like it's like so stupid, and I just try to be aware of like, okay, what are the options that you have? And sometimes I just need like a big cry and then get over it. And setting an alarm, which is a tip I got from Mel, for 5 minutes, and just like have a full meltdown. That's fine. And then when the alarm goes off, you're just like, okay, get yourself together, and we're like moving on. And being grateful for just looking up, like look around you and the place you are, and it's probably pretty amazing. So just like try to look at the positive things that like bring you joy at that point. Like maybe it's the sunset, maybe it's like the rocks, maybe it's like the moon landscape that you get to ride through, although it's hard. And walking is also fine, you know, as long as you keep moving, and also the low point will pass. And I guess the low point always counters with like the high point, where you just like, I don't know, the night turns into daylight. It's the moment that the race in February takes place, the nights are like almost 12 hours or something. It's like from 8 to 8. So it's pretty long. It's like a long night, and it can kind of mentally fuck you up a bit. So when the sun starts to rise, it's like that's often the high point for me, because I don't know, the brings you like new energy and like literally brings the world energy. So those are
Yeah.
often like really high points. I think the, what is this road again? The Colonial Road. So
Yeah.
it's like a completely hand-built road, and the sun started to come up, and this was that was breathtaking, and it's amazing. And after like the coming to like the highest point, you get to like descend, and the descent is really, really amazing. And so you're
Yeah.
just flying, and I think
It's like
those are
road
things that you get.
or a
Sorry.
trail. It's like a road or a trail, the
Yeah, it's like a
descent.
proper gravel road with, it's a bit chunky, but
Mm-hmm.
yeah, it's fine to descend on a pretty okay speed. And
Mm.
yeah, you're flying, and gives you some goosebumps, and you're like, I'm doing this. We're we're doing this thing. So that's
Oh, that's
amazing.
so cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. And how was doing the race on your own as a woman? Did you encounter any unique challenges? And what would be like your recommendations for somebody like planning to do the same? I think it was really inspiring that you. I think in the talk I went, you were the only woman there, and you gave a new perspective or maybe challenges that you encountered. So, any advice
Yeah.
on this end?
Yeah, I think Morocco has a bit of a different idea, or maybe expectations, of the role of women in their culture and society. And depending from being in a city or being in the mountains, around
Mm-hmm.
Berber cultures, there's there's a shift. So in the city, people might even not wear a hijab, or just be more free in how they dress. And then in
Mm-hmm.
the mountains, they are maybe, or for sure, more conservative. And I think it's just important to be aware of like
Mm-hmm.
a different culture, and be respectful
Yeah.
to this other way of thinking and having different values, maybe. And I think in general, being a woman on a bike, it is, wherever you ride, it can be sometimes vulnerable. I don't know about your experiences, but
Yeah.
there's definitely been situations where you get called upon, or like there things happen. And I think in Morocco it wasn't always meant for me as a woman, but there's been
Mm-hmm.
little boys that are like shouting at you, and you don't even understand what they're shouting. And it
Yeah.
could be could be a bit of bravura, like they try to be like cool to their friends or to their big brothers or whatever, and like
Yeah.
maybe even throwing sticks or rocks, and that can be
Yeah.
annoying. And I even had like a moment where they were like, I was in a sand section, and they tried to like hold my bike, and it was playful but not fun anymore.
Yeah.
But at the
Yeah.
other, like from their perspective, there's this weird human looking like crazy
Yeah.
on the
Yeah.
bike going into this
Curiosity.
desert
Yeah.
section. Why? Like,
Yeah.
I don't know, we're the alien, and we're doing the weird thing. So it's like, yeah, we're encountering in their world or something. Doesn't
Mm-hmm.
mean that they are allowed to do that kind of stuff.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. It's important to just plan out for these situations, and it's very. I think one of the best things about these kind of races is like it. You have to interact with the locals and get to understand the culture. It's so enriching. I mean, in this
Yeah.
kind of races, you learn about culture, politics. In TCR, you had to learn about geopolitics, where to cross the borders, etc. And it's so enriching. I think, I mean, you wrote in places like Morocco, Kyrgyzstan. What are your biggest takeaways, or interacting with the different cultures? And I know you are an artist. Does it translate into any of your work?
For me, and it was both in Greece and in Morocco and also Kyrgyzstan. I think all these people all over the world, everyone has like this generous heart of like wanting to
Mm-hmm.
give and wanting to take care of other people. And yeah, Morocco has exactly the same, where you're always welcome. And do you want to drink tea, or like They always
Yeah.
want to invite you into their home. And I think it's always good to keep that in mind. Like we talked about like the scary part, but there's the core of this culture is
Hmm.
to be extremely warm and giving. And yeah, that's beautiful. And you will experience that when you're out there. So yeah.
Yeah,
Um,
exactly.
and as far as inspiration goes, like mostly the landscapes are the thing that inspire me to make art. And it for a while I wanted to keep these things very separate, but I realized they are way more yeah, interact, like they way more intervene with each other. And I have one of the most incredible experiences being in the landscape myself. So I realized that this is such an inspiring thing to use to make art. And
Hmm.
it's even the night riding, like
Yeah.
you're in this like little bubble, and there's this crazy galaxy above you that you otherwise can't see, because we live in cities and we live in like quite light polluted environment. And
Yeah.
being out there in like a mountain or in the desert, there's hardly any light pollution, so you get to see the Milky Way. And it's like moments like that, it's like that's amazing that we get to see that by being here. And it happens
Hmm.
everywhere. And yeah, the world is a pretty magical, magnificent place.
Could you give us 5 tips for people looking into like ultra cycling or bikepacking?
5 tips. Ooh, bring something to protect yourself from the sun.
Hmm.
I love to bring a scarf, and it could either be for the dust, because there's Morocco is a pretty dusty place, and also the sun is just really bright, and sometimes the lip gloss or whatever, and the sunscreen is not enough. So I love to bring a scarf. To eat all the food, just like experience the culture and try new things, even though you don't know what it is.
That's the best
Um,
part.
yeah. Um, Number 3, don't forget to look around. Especially what I like to do is like when you're riding through the night, and maybe when bikepacking and you're just touring, you might not do that, but every once in a while, just like turn off your lights and just have a moment to just like look at the sky. It's a good
Yeah.
thing. And if I would go bikepacking, I might. It would be great to just like take some more time at certain areas of the landscape. And I'd say if you do the race, maybe have some time after the race, like another week or so, to just
Hmm.
explore certain parts, so you spend a bit more time. Because the only thing of racing is that you sometimes go through too fast through certain sections, and it's amazing to get like a first impression, but it
Yeah.
might be worth to spend like 2 days at a certain part to explore more. um I guess that's my fifth. Go see the ocean, but you will when you do the
Yeah.
race. You'll end up. I think that's amazing. This country, especially Morocco, it has like the desert, the mountains, and then it goes into the ocean. And I think that's pretty cool about Morocco, to have all these different landscapes in one country.
And so, I mean, you've been doing quite a lot of ultra races. What's next for you? Are you planning new exciting events for next year? Still off road? What's your plan?
Yeah, I think we're still sticking to off-road. My biggest one next would be Tour de Vaille. That's like
Oh,
a
wow.
big one. And I'm kind of
Yeah.
scared about it, because I think the last longest one I did was in Kyrgyzstan.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the longer a race is, and I might need to ask you tons of things about TCR, because it's also a pretty long race.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I'm kind of scared of the exhaustion of the body at some point. I think
Yeah.
in Kyrgyzstan I experienced that as well. And So the mental struggle is harder the longer a race. If you have 5 days, like it's over in a few days. So let's just like get another day going. But when
Yeah.
it's like almost 2 weeks or longer, it asks a different mentality, I guess. So
Yeah.
yeah, I'm definitely a bit scared of that. What are your
Oh,
tips for like doing long stuff like that's almost 2 weeks?
I think I always take it as a reverse split. So
Ah,
I don't go I don't go my full capacity at the beginning. I always take it easy. So it's more for me it's more a race of preservation. I
right.
just make sure, for example, the first days of TCR, I make sure I sleep 4 hours a day. I had protein shakes, I had electrolytes, I have vitamin water. I mean, I bought everything I could have for recovery at night.
Yeah,
When I stop,
smart.
I stretch in the hotels. So I was like, this is a race to keep. And I look at my statistics and the average speed, it kept quite constant during the race because we
Amazing.
were recovering. And then I know at the end, if I want to be I know I can make it through if I follow that strategy. And at the end, if I want to, let's say, compete, or maybe, yeah, you get ambition sometimes, like, oh,
Yeah,
maybe I can catch this person, or you could you have the energy to push it with everybody else. I found a lot of people when full gas, that's the mistake a lot of people do when starting ultra cycling, and then they are completely done and you pass them by on the bike like zombies. But
yeah.
just knowing that I took care of myself at the beginning, I know at the end I have the energy to push it if I want.
Do you
Mhm.
have like certain goals for races where you want to finish in a certain time, for example? Or how do you
Yeah.
approach racing?
I don't know about you, but there's always like you have your goal and then you have your hidden goal, the one you don't tell anybody because
Yeah,
you don't want to put pressure on yourself, but you still like, if I have the chance, I will
yeah,
do that. So there's always, I always have my goal like, okay, let's finish like this. But I always have my hidden goal like, okay, maybe if I'm doing well, I can make it like in this
absolutely.
time or certain position or
I
things
think
like
that's
that.
also like it's part of like a human being, but also being this can also create like the mental struggle for me where I'm like, oh, I'm
Yeah,
actually not meeting my hidden goal, and then I
yeah,
get disappointed, and that can
yeah,
be like a cycle. It's definitely something that I have to work on, like the
yeah.
the, the mental healthy position that you have to bring yourself in, and versus like how far do you want to push, and I think it's always balancing those two. How would you say that if you have time towards Morocco, what would I think you briefly before this talk told me that you are thinking about changing your setup. What is your approach right now on the technical terrain of Morocco?
I think I can really relate with what you said, going for a mountain bike because I'm also like not experienced off road. So I really noticed that yeah, you can be fast on a gravel bike, but I think that there you have to compensate a lot with skill, even technical terrain. But having a mountain bike just allows you with the suspension just to go over things, and also takes not such a big toll on your body. I think it's more about compliance.
Yeah,
So if you can your body is good for longer, then you can keep your pace for longer. But if your hands are already numb because you have a gravel bike and you
yeah,
don't have enough suspension, or for example a mountain bike, you can have bigger brake rotors, so you don't have to push as much on the brakes in the descents, the tires. So I'm going for a drop bar mountain bike and currently working on the build. So that's exciting. I
that's
think I
very
like,
exciting.
yeah, I like ultra races also because there's always something you can tweak and there's always something interesting to do on your bike, whether it's a new build or just changing your whole setup completely. It keeps it interesting, and you have these weird setups like drop bar mountain bikes. I mean,
Yeah,
now you
yeah,
see it in
absolutely.
gravel
And I think
races.
what you said, like the setup of a mountain bike will
Hmm.
compensate as well for maybe some lack of skills, and it will be forgiving. So if you would
Hmm.
have the gravel bike and you hit a rock, it will be like it will stop you. Where with a suspension, it will be like we're rolling over it or we just hobble over it. And that I think is definitely really nice I think mountain bikes have compensated for my lack of skills many times, and it's it's pretty great. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's one thing I wish I knew as a beginning in off-road. Rather don't go for a gravel bike maybe at first. Go if you have the option for a mountain bike, and then
Of
you can
course.
see, because I was like, if I would have been a mountain bike, I would have probably be faster because I wouldn't have to walk, or I would have descended it. But
But on the
instead of
other
like,
hand, I'm thinking of you
Mhm.
doing BBB. I think
Yeah,
it's 2 years ago, and you
yeah.
did really, really good. And that was on, you took the gravel bike, right?
Yeah, but that was a big. I, to be honest, regretted it. If I will do it again, I will do it on a mountain bike because it starts fast
Yeah.
on a tarmac, and
Yeah,
then
right.
it gets more and more technical. So then the people on the mountain bikes were going faster and faster. So, and I, to be honest, I fell so many times in the mud. I bent my derailleur 3 times. I had to go to bike shops like 3 times. So it was like the whole day riding on 2 gears because my derailleur was bent until I found a bike shop, repaired it, and again I fell.
Unbelievable. I mean,
And
it
then
shows again how strong of a rider you are. So that's amazing. Really impressive.
thank you so much. Bye, you too. Like they're taking the winning Hellenic mountain race. I mean,
Well,
with
thanks.
such a treacherous conditions. That's a proof of persistence. I would say. I was
Yeah, I
like,
guess
whoa.
sometimes I would say like the most horrible conditions, the more rain, the more snow, the better I perform or something. So yeah, it's like it's something funny. I guess it's thrilling to have
Yeah,
like hard
yeah.
hard conditions. Yeah.
Well, thank you so much, Quinda. I'm looking forward then to follow your journey and tour the bike. Maybe we can talk after how it goes. I
Yeah, that would
think
be
that's
amazing.
pretty
And I can't
cool.
wait to follow you and hear about your adventure in Morocco. I'm super thrilled that you decided to sign up and not be scared of this new challenge. And it's going to be amazing.
Yeah, thank
Good
you so
luck.
much. Thank you.
Thanks so much for having me.
Thanks for watching and listening. You can find all information in the links below and exclusive discounts and Black Friday deals on Insta360 and Redshift. And if you enjoyed this episode and you're listening on Spotify and Apple Podcasts, rate the show, and on YouTube, subscribe and hit the bell button below so you don't miss the upcoming episodes. Until the next adventure.